So Maya, we are talking about a tax-free savings investment or tax-free savings account, right? And in your book, Money Questions Answered, over here, you speak about a parent, for example, who wants to invest for their child and they max their contributions every single year. What does your calculation give you at the end? So you're saying that the child will have, at the age of 18, they'll have just over 1.1 million rand.
In today's value.
Maya, wait. So you are saying that the average return, so the real return of equities is 7%, right?
Yeah, so historically, right?
Yes.
So let's just put this, if we went back in time. So it's very important when you are looking at investing to understand nominal versus real returns. Yeah, this is why people think investing's hard.
Yes.
Because we use all these funny words. But when you invest, you want to grow above inflation.
Yes.
Because you want to make sure that the cup of coffee that you buy today, you'll still be able to have enough money to buy that same cup of coffee in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. That it's not going to be, so if the cup of coffee is costing you 50 Rand today, you don't want to be costing you 100, it's probably going to cost you like 150 in 20 years' time, right? So your money needs to, at 50 Rand, needs to at least grow to 150. That's just keeping up with inflation. But we don't want to just be able to buy one cup of coffee in 10 or 20 years' time. We want to be able to buy 3 cups of coffee, and that's where the growth comes in. So when we're looking at returns, so if you have a look at the history of returns from the JSE, they averaged about 12%. So if you're sitting there with, if inflation's sitting at maybe 6%, you've got a real return of 6%, right? Because your inflation's 6%, but you're getting 12%. Therefore, your real return is 6%. So you kind of want to look and make sure that your investments are giving you real above inflation returns. So when we did this calculation, we looked at it and we said, okay, what had been the history of real returns in South Africa and how would that have influenced the outcome of this investment?
Yeah.
So it's important because it can start to look like telephone numbers. If you start investing
because
now,
a lot of people, you start saying 1.1 million in today's value. Or people are like, call it bluff. No ways. These numbers are just inaccurate. You won't be able to afford anything in 18 years with that type of money. 1.1 million Rand, you'll probably be able to buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah, well, if you put it in a bank account, it's probably true because bank accounts interest generally only really gives you inflation. You have to be investing in things like, shares that can grow well above inflation.
Yeah. So why do you think it's so incredibly difficult for people to get compound interest?
Because people haven't been alive long enough. And I know that sounds funny, but...
No, but that's true. And they have not seen the markets well enough over many, many years. And I think even, I'm going to add a layer to it, that us as a people have not been investing long enough for us to understand such numbers. And
exactly.
There is this pushback when once you start saying, oh, this is what it could turn to, and people are like, oh, hell no, no ways.
And I promise you, if you started investing and you left your money to grow and grow and grow, suddenly at the age of 50, you have millions, okay? Now, let me explain to you what happens when you have millions. The market goes up by 10%, and you've managed to save up 5 million Rand, okay? Because you have not cashed in your pension, you've let it grow, you've let it do its work. 5 million Rand, that means that year alone, it gives you a return of 500,000 Rand. But people,
it's compounding
exactly.
on
So
money that has been compounding all
over
along.
time,
Yes.
and it just grows faster and faster and faster. But like you said, unless you get to that point where you experience that, when you start seeing it's experiencing it. When you see your net asset value increasing so rapidly, but it takes time. And you know what, Mapula, we do not have interest in, all in, is time.
Yeah.
We do not want to wait for the 5 million. Why not? Because we want to be spending it now.
No.
And that's the problem. So we want the 5 million today so we can live the lifestyle of the 5 million. We're not prepared to let it grow and grow and grow to get to a point where we become millionaires.
100%. So this person, you would have maxed out, you would have contributed about 500,000. I mean,
I think 600,000 in this example, because we had to push it a bit above the 500,000 Rand limit because we wanted to get to the age of 18.
Yeah. Oh, yes, unlike 15 years.
Yeah.
You would have reached 500,000.
So you're probably looking at having given 600,000. So let's say you put in 600,000 and it was now worth 1 million. Right? So just what I want to think about for a moment is that 400,000 of growth, if you had done that outside of a tax-free savings account, it would be worth, you would be paying tax on that. And
So
that's important. Huh?
Someone else actually said, all right, so let's say you do get to these millions that you're talking about. They said, oh no, SARS will never let you ever take that money tax-free. It is a tax-free
That's what it
vehicle
is.
that was
Yeah.
introduced by the government to do exactly that. But we do not see the benefit of it because we are not patient enough to accumulate millions in that fund for us to really experience the tax-free benefits that it allows.
And one thing is very important, people don't trust the government, which I can understand, but never in the history of South Africa have they ever taken away a benefit retrospectively. So yes, tomorrow they could decide that, they're not going to allow tax-free savings accounts anymore, but anything that you've accumulated and anything that you've got already in the product, they won't go back and say, oh, we're changing it, we're not going to tax you. I think that is something we're pretty safe on. So, for me, Mapolo, the first thing I have done when they came into being was open one for myself and my kids, and my husband's got one, because I promise you, I do not want to pay SARS any more tax than I already do.
Yeah.
And I know that this money for me is going to be a really big booster to my retirement.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not even going to talk about people who start saying, "Oh, but what if I'm dead?" If you're thinking like that, this channel is not for you, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
But,
Bye.
maybe in heaven.